Good morning, distinguished guests. My name is Stevenson Ngubane. I would like to also recognize the presence of our honorable ministers, chairpersons of board of directors from the various railways or members of SARA, and the board members themselves, and of course, all our sponsors. Now, with the topic that we have, I'm going to call on the panelists so that we don't waste time. Our panelists consist of the following. We have Amstead Reeling, Mervyn Chetty, if you can come on the stage. We have from Gibela, Piet Mahlangu. Please come up to the stage. We also have Prasa, Sorin Bata, if I'm pronouncing it properly. Please come onto the stage. And from Siemens, Ivan Becker, and from TE, Transnet Engineering, Reginald Mokwena. Let's give a hand of applause, please. Please take your seats. Okay, we're just rearranging ourselves here. Sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this conference is boosting continental trade via rail, investments in African railways for the sustainable development of the continent. I think in many forums at the highest level, we speak about inter-Africa trade. Transport, I would say especially rail, is the cornerstone in making things possible, in trading between ourselves. Now, this session is about manufacturing rolling stock. Our rolling stock being the locomotives and the wagons, carriages and coaches. So we have the team of experts here who are going to share with us what they do in their different industries, and then how we can put it together so that we are able to create the capacity that we need. The previous session talked about the network expansion in Angola. I tried to listen very carefully. There is a lot happening. Now, at the end of the day, once we have done the network part, then we need rolling stock. I also heard that the rolling stock, some of it is sourced from outside of Africa, and maybe yet we're going to hear from our panelists here, our capacity in Southern Africa, in manufacturing our own rolling stock. So please welcome the panelists before we start. What I will ask each one of them is for a brief introduction, very briefly, maybe about 2 minutes or so, and of course their understanding of the topic for the day for this session, manufacturing rolling stock and the supply chain in Africa. I'll start with the gentleman on my immediate left.
Thank you, Mr. Ngubane. My name is Mervyn John Chetty. I represent Amstead Reeling. We have a joint venture with Amstead Rail. Amstead Reeling manufactures and supplies rolling stock equipment. We have a facility that does bearing reconditioning. Besides that, we also supply all undercar equipment for rolling stock currently. We also do some locomotive spares, so we are the guys that do most of the components that go into your rolling stock. That's what we do. So we have a long history supplying into the region, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Ngubane, and good morning, everyone. The name is Pete Mahlangu. I work for a company called Gibera Rail. We manufacture rolling stock. We're based in Nigel Dunota, and I am leading sourcing as head of sourcing.
Good morning, guys. My name is Reginald from Transport Engineering. I'm mostly involved in a whole lot of business development, but previously on the manufacturing, design manufacturing for all types of rolling stock. I come from an environment where our capacity exceeds limitation in terms of what is required in the continent when it comes to rolling stock, using most of the companies sitting here as partners in the supply chain environment. Thank you.
So, as I was saying, my name is Ivan Becker. I represent Siemens Mobility South Africa. For this panel discussion, I bring some insights and experience of Siemens Mobility and how they've managed over the past 15 years to develop a local supply chain to deliver world-class signaling solutions in South Africa. This journey of Siemens probably started about in 2008 on the Oryx line, where we've delivered the first electronic interlockings to Transnet. A highlight of that journey has probably been the collaboration with PRASA on the Gauteng network. The local South Africans actually managed to deliver probably the biggest signaling contract in the continent's history. And then maybe an unknown success story is our ability, how we've utilized these experiences and skills that was developed through these projects to serve markets and regions outside of South Africa and Southern Africa. So I'm happy to share some of those insights today.
Thank you, Siemens.
Good morning, bon dia, so bonani. I hope that Baba Ngubane will make us also better persons. I am Storen Baltak. For today, my role is the project manager in the contract with Gibela from PRASA, and PRASA is running the passenger trains in the metropolitan areas, main metropolitan areas in South Africa, and also intercity. Thank you.
Thank you for that brief introductions. I would like to call on Telo to come up stage. I'm short by Telo. Please, Telo, representative, come on the stage before we move on to the next line of responses. Let's hope you find a chair there. Okay. Thank you. Let me give you to do the same as the other gentleman, please, Para.
Hi, good morning, Chair. And morning to all. I guess you wanted to get a little bit of an aspect in terms of it from a leasing of rolling stock perspective. So happy to share that with yourselves in terms of where Telo Group is positioned with regards to accessing and sourcing rolling stock from the manufacturers.
Thank you. Now we want to go deeper into this discussion, but I already picked up that there's a lot happening locally or within the SADC region. These companies that are up here as panelists. Now, we want you to spend about 5 minutes, each one of you, to talk about sustainable financial structures that support growth or that support the manufacturing of rolling stock. Rolling stock is key for everything that we do because it is the capacity that is required to serve our customers. It's like the saying that how can you operate a taxi service without taxis? So a rolling stock in the railways, yes, you have this, the infrastructure, the track, let us say first, but the capacity to deliver the service is dependent on the capacity that we have as a railway together or individually. So the first point is sustainable financial structures. Then the second point is collaborative effort between the African nations. On this point, you share with us what you believe can actually accelerate collaboration and working together. And the third point is the strategies to protect investment in railway sector manufacturing, especially, of course, we're talking about rolling stock and supply chain in Africa. So I would like us to, again, we can start from this end, my immediate left, comments or responses to sustainability financially, collaborative action, and strategy. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gubani. Yes, I think the answer to the question is yes, we do have sustainable financial structures in the region to sustain us and to finance us. That is possible. We do have, besides our DBSA, besides our own financial houses, like our banking institutions, we can, and it's possible for us to go ahead and finance what we need to manufacture and how we need to operate in the region. I think that question says that we can do it. It's not that we always need help from outside, but it's possible to do it ourselves. And we have been doing it for a while, so I think that's definitely possible.
Okay, thank you. The next panelist.
I think on the collaborative effort, Gibela is a practical example where you can boost your own local production with a collaborative effort from African nations as well as global partners. We have done that. When we started in 2017, 2018, we were only manufacturing one train, and now we are able to manufacture about 62 in a year. And that is through the collaborative effort from partners as well as African nations. So it is possible, it's there, it's been done.
Thank you.
Look, on the collaboration issue, I think most of the areas that we collaborate with and partners that we have here on the panels, it goes with the requirement in terms of operational requirement in the rail industry, and also the political will to allow private sector to add value into the environment that we find ourselves in. The product that we manufacture are not really product off the shelf. They are extremely expensive products that require muscles when it comes to finance. I'm glad that Telo is here today to provide a type of assistance to everybody else around here who can present the proper business case to get funding to facilitate all these requirements on rolling stock. The collaboration part of it shouldn't end only in the region. It must also be transgressed to other areas through the Africa Trade Initiative that the AU has come up with. It gives us a lot of leverage because in the country so far, we have so much resources in terms of rolling stock manufacturing that the beneficiaries of these initiatives goes down below to SMEs, down below to startups, and we need to sustain that portion to create a better economy and also employment, which is key for us as a country and also as a region to exist.
Thank you.
So my take on this topic would probably be that, what we've seen in the signaling space at least is the adoption of, global standards. And I must actually commend Soren and the team at PRASA. Under his guidance, PRASA has opted for ETCS from a signaling standard perspective. That actually enabled Siemens as an OEM to make the investment in South Africa and then actually train workforces that can be later utilized in other markets that are also looking to expand on those global standards. So in short, global standards help mitigate the risk when deciding to invest in a specific market or region. And then also it gives you the confidence that you will be getting a return of investment when you're looking to take that investment and then export the services to other markets that are also looking to implement projects on the same standards.
Thank you, Ivan.
Yeah, I want to amplify what my esteemed colleagues have said. And to say that the Gibela contract, it's a huge success, showing that the cooperation between the government, private business, labor and management from Gibela can produce at the highest level, highest possible level, where the government, guided by PRASA's requirement, has invested in Gibela through PRASA, and Gibela has managed to manufacture the amount of rolling stock that is required, and more than that, at the international standards. That's on one side. On the other side, the signaling that has been produced, has been installed by Siemens, it should have allowed the rolling stock produced by Gibela to be run and PRASA to have the numbers of passengers in the metropolitan areas that would have brought PRASA to be one of the best performers in the world. Then, again, the cooperation, the collaboration between state, private business, Siemens or Alstom, and the workforce and the management of the companies, Gibela, Siemens, and PRASA, are key factors in the sustainability of rolling stock and generally the network rail. Thank you.
Thank you, PRASA. I would like Telo to focus on the sustainable financial sources, let's say within the region, or let's say in South Africa and other countries, but as well as offshore financing of what we need in our region. Para?
Thank you, Chair. I think, often you cannot refer to rolling stock without, in a similar manner, referring to the funding of rolling stock. We all know that these are very high-end very capital-intensive type items. And when you look at it in terms of sustainable finance, there's two elements that one needs to cover. So one is just the capital outlay in terms of the actual acquisition itself. And then in order for that to be sustainable, is the maintenance relevant to that, because it's a case of wanting to ensure that one extracts the maximum benefit out of the useful life of the asset. So to be able to create sustainable finance, generally what you're looking at is, and this is why we are strong proponents of a leasing solution, it allows the operators and the mining companies and whoever's looking for a rail solution to be able to better manage their cash flows and budgeting component to that. But for us, a key component is to ensure that we work with the manufacturers and the suppliers and the OEM to ensure that there's a key maintenance on a regular basis. So there's the normal scheduled maintenance and the latter stages in terms of overhauls. But with maintenance, one of the main parts of maintenance is access to spares, because operators and anyone who's using the rolling stock, the worst situation is when you have rolling stock that is standing. Those are meant to be productive assets, and if you're not able to get your spares in time, that's quite a serious indictment in terms of the supply chain aspect of it. So when we look at a solution in terms of sustainable finance, we ensure that all aspects of these are in fact covered in terms of the contract that we conclude, you know, on our supply side of. In terms of when we consider it from an offshore perspective, the costing element of this is also important. The ability to be able to provide on-site capabilities with regards to maintenance is a key aspect as well. So in that regard, one needs to work very closely with the likes of your export credit agencies. If you are supplying from South Africa, for example, you have the ECIC, who are strong partners in being able to provide a cost-effective solution on the guarantee side. But in addition to that, there's the risk covers that we normally need to ensure, especially on an offshore basis with regards to political risk insurance and your credit risk cover as well, that can mitigate circumstances that may arise. I mean, we've had situations where rolling stock, certain incidents or accidents that have taken place, and these are long-term in terms of being able to repair the equipment. It's not like your vehicle that you book it in the morning and you pick it up in the afternoon. You literally, these assets could be in those workshops for 6 months to a year. And during that time, you need to make sure that you've got adequate cover and protection in place to guard against or provide you revenue that you can continue with your operations or access alternative rolling stock. So these are, for us, when we consider our relationships with the manufacturers and the supply chain, it's an important component of us providing a sustainable solution into the operators and into Africa with regards to accessing of rolling stock and a smooth operational service as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I've picked up that with our experts here, indicating that we have capacity to manufacture. I'm going to ask Gibela to maybe say a few things about what about the specification, what about the standards, because in Southern Africa we have one gauge, that's one of the biggest advantages, the Cape gauge, 1067 millimeters. So then also the way we operate, like other regions I would say in the world, we interchange wagons. They've got to have the same braking system so that you are able to interchange, run into the other's country. Once you have loaded your cargo, it has to go to destination. Not the case where you have to offload at a border because maybe the other railway would not be able to, has a different system of braking. But I'm sure Gibela is seeing it all as one of the major manufacturers. Is there any standards, common standards that you have seen in manufacturing?
In terms of standards, yes, mainly you will find that due to huge operations in Europe, you would have EN standards. And now when you come to Africa, South Africa, you would have different standards. I may take a simple example of raw material. When we started in producing, we find that it was extremely difficult to use South African material. But then we had to engage the mills in South Africa, and we indicate exactly what we require, and they were able to come up with good standards that are good for South Africa. We managed to have what we call RCS, which is rolling stock carbon steel, as well as rolling stock stainless steel that we produced, and we are now able to utilize that. And the standard is as good as any, and we are now able to even export the same material to be used elsewhere in the world.
Thank you for that response. I'm looking at TE to say more or less what they do and how they handle. But also TE, I would like you to, railways do have a lot of rolling stock, wagons in particular, we say lying around, which can be actually refurbished and put back into service, because a wagon is a very simple equipment, but critical for our operations. And it can have a life of 40 years. You can even repair it, putting new spares, and give it another life of 20 years or so. What is your experience, TE, in that area?
I think we positioned ourselves in terms of plant allocations around the country, from Cape Town, Port Elizabeth, Durban, and also in Pretoria and Joburg, to be able to serve different areas with different types of rolling stock, whether it's in the maintenance sector or refurbishment, also rebuild. We offer those kind of services to neighboring states, where we do the heavy rebuilds of wagons, we do heavy rebuilds of locomotives to facilitate operational efficiency. And I mean, we adopt the AAR standards, which is commonly used globally and accepted globally, in line with all E and quality standards that are required for manufacturing and also for our processes internally. It is important to understand that some of these designs might not need AAR because of their condition of operation. The reason why we adopted AAR is because of the length and also the heavy haul nature of what we do in the country. And that rigid designs and everything else adds value into the life and also the maintenance cycle of the product. We do have a capacity to manufacture currently over 250 wagons on a monthly basis on different areas of different specific areas in the country. And also we take care of over 10,000 wagons for TFR in terms of maintenance, in terms of rebuilds. And we also do offer services on design, also offer services on recoveries of accident wagons, accident coaches, accident locomotives. So with the capacity is unlimited that we have right now. We have spread ourselves in such a way that there's not much dependencies anymore. We collaborate with entities externally. We collaborate with our suppliers, so that at least we don't have to be seen to be doing almost everything. It's impossible for us to do everything. We need to specialize OEMs. We need specialized consultants in certain areas to assist us with technologies, assist us with to add efficiencies in our operations.
Okay, thank you. And to Reeling, what can you say on the point of, I think you focus on producing spare parts, various components of rolling stock for maintenance, but do you venture into the area of maintaining or rehabilitation of wagons or rolling stock?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, on that part, I was just thinking, coming back to South Africa, we, for many decades, were locked on our own in the region where we couldn't get spares and parts from anywhere else. So we had to make sure that what we manufactured ran for a long time. So we have equipment that can run for 40 years, 30 years. Rehabilitating that, we have the spares locally, we have the capability of manufacturing, reconditioning, we have the capability of keeping them going. So that's definitely. The standards, I can touch on what my colleague was talking about, AAR. AAR is quite a high standard, but Transnet has an even higher standard because there was a time where their standard was much higher for our region, for what we have. So if you come to rehabilitating our rolling stock, definitely we have components that are manufactured in the region. We can supply those. We can make sure that our rolling stock runs. To touch on that subject, it's like buying a car, and after 2 years when you have to replace your tires, you can't get tires because those tires are only in another region. It's not available where you are. So you buy your car, you run it nicely, but when you need to replace tires, you have to replace your car. And that's what happens constantly in the region. So if we can get local suppliers manufacturing, like TE makes 250, or they have capacity to make 250 wagons a month. That's what their capacity is. So it's not like it can't be done here, but I'm sure if we can make it, we can do it here. So from our point, as Amstead Reeland, as a supplier of rolling stock equipment, it's possible for us to do that.
Okay, thank you, Mervyn. Siemens, what is your take on this subject of some rehabilitation. What is your experience? We have talked about manufacturing and rehabilitation of wagons and locomotives. I'm sure you have some systems in locomotives that require from time to time to be upgraded.
So unfortunately, Siemens South Africa hasn't really been successful in recent time with rolling stock. We have, however, in the past supplied quite a lot of locomotives to Transnet, which the private sector in traction and these guys have managed to refurbish and apply to markets outside of South Africa, like Tanzania and so forth. So I think the skills are definitely there, the supply chains are definitely there to support even 40-year-old locomotives, some new equipment, an upgrade of the systems, some new paintworks, and they work quite successfully in the regions outside of South Africa as well. So definitely possible.
Thank you. Prasa, I'm looking at you as the end user or the user of the equipment and all the space that you need to keep your trains running. What can you share your experience in terms of sourcing those spare parts, which is always best if it's locally, and if it's offshore or overseas, it must come when ordered, the lead time must be as short as possible. Can you comment on that?
Thank you. Yeah, the end users are the passengers. We are also the middlemen there. Yes, we do maintain. With Gibela, we have 2 contracts, and one of the contract is for supply parts and maintenance for the first part, as well as training our staff. We do have our own depots for maintenance, and we are busy upgrading these facilities in order to host the new rolling stock as well. Probably here we'll need also some private public arrangement in order to increase our level of service. And regarding the supply chain, in Gibela, we do have around 3,000 suppliers. 92% of these suppliers are local. A component that is important in the agreement, in the contract, in the shareholding is a local shareholding that brings more substance to the local suppliers. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm hearing that we have a lot. We have capacity to manufacture. We have capacity to maintain, repair, upgrade in the region. On the other side, railways are talking about lack of capacity. There are not enough wagons. There are not enough locomotives. And then they talk about going overseas, let me say, supplied from China. This is now for any of the panelists to come up and say, now that we have heard you to say, we have, let's say 90%, we can do it and supply the region with very good, high quality components. So why is the outcry? Anyone to go?
I'm assuming this thing is on. Maybe, Chair, so I can just wade in there. I think, so as you've heard through the panels and the organizations that are involved in the manufacturing side, there's very high-end, good quality spares and parts being used. But, with this comes an associated cost, especially where you have an item that's going to last you 20, 30, 40 years. And on a long-term solution, that is exactly what's needed in terms of being able to to buy an asset that can last for the useful life that it's intended. But I think this is about a mindset change as well, where when we look at players on the continent, the first reaction is about the cost issue. How much does this cost? And that is why immediately when you indicate that you've got a premium type asset, the tendency is to say, no, we can get this cheaper. But this is in terms of sacrificing long-term benefits for short-term gains. And that is why we end up losing quite a bit of the opportunity to be able to move our capacity and rolling stock into the market, because these were the offshore markets bringing in cheaper type solutions, and sometimes also becoming a bit of a dumping ground in terms of where they no longer need these assets, and they want to now then bring this and be able to redeploy this for on a shorter term in terms of a much cheaper model. But then you don't have the actual expertise to be able to maintain this. And if you look at our local manufacturing, the intention is to focus on a standardized type product, and not an item that's been imported, because then you've got to now reskill yourself. But those are just for once-off items. If you're looking at trying to provide a sustainable solution, this has to be on a long-term process in terms of being able to know that the skills that you're creating and the capacity that you have are being able to provide it across a standardized asset that has got a high quality component, and that often if these come at a little higher price, those are factors that need to be considered in the financing side of it as against just trying to buy a cheaper item.
And maybe if I can also add to it from an OEM's perspective in dealing with supply chain issues and so forth. And that is really, we need to have a solid pipeline of projects. A tendency that has happened in the Southern African rail market has really been projects that are brought to market, they are tendered, and then they fall into this perpetual validity extension cycles. Projects are being extended, and ultimately cancelled. That's really a very difficult thing for suppliers to deal with, how to forecast, how to ensure that the employees are kept employed, kept busy, the overheads are being taken care of. Now, that being said, I do want to maybe just mention as well for Hisham and Team Prasa, even Russell and Team Transnet, I've seen that they've really started taking the right steps in starting the processes to renew some of the key infrastructure that we really need, specifically in South Africa, to arrest this negative decline of the railways in South Africa. And from an OEM's perspective, we are very positive and comforted by these positive steps, because we really do need these projects to keep our people employed, to keep the skills, and then really to build on it to serve the rest of the market.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, perhaps if I may add, as Prasa indicated, we do manufacture space, which we supply. We have developed suppliers that are able to supply space. At this point in time, I think our local content on the space is about 70, it's above 70%. I think the challenge that we're seeing is that we're not sure if the demand will be big enough after manufacturing of the trains on the space to keep those suppliers going, because they would need that.
Okay. TE?
I think one of the areas that Transnet is working on right now to get rolling stock available and also to resuscitate the market of after-sales services when it comes to component supply is looking at the process of making available rolling stock or idling rolling stock to be leased or to be made available for service in preparation to the rail reform that's coming in towards the end of this year. So that is so much of an effort to collaborate with the private sector for their participation in resuscitating the railway operations in the country.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think my take will be a simple thing. Will be cheap is expensive, because the question was why are we difficult? Why is it difficult for guys in the region to supply components and rolling stock? Everything is the cost. Like our one colleague was sharing, that everybody looks at cost, but when you go for cheap, that's when it costs you in the long run, because you're going to use something only for 5 years or 7 years as opposed to 40 years. And that's where your cost comes in. Thank you.
Okay, I'm glad that you touch on cost because I was going to ask any of you who's brave enough to say, are you competitive in the, let's say, manufacturing in the region? Because some railways or some organizations would say, if I buy somewhere overseas in large quantities, I receive a better unit price. Just one of you to comment, are you competitive?
We are competitive. I think I will urge anyone else who wants to acquire rolling stock to buy value. The pricing part of it, with the cheaper it is, the more you're going to buy a whole lot of rolling stock equipment, and the maintenance cost is going to escalate so much that what you avoided before is now kicking in. So the value that we provide and longevity and the quality of the product we provide is seen all over the region. It's seen. We have supplied rolling stock in West Africa. We have supplied rolling stock in South America, and we're still having partnerships with those people because the rolling stock operation is giving them the value that they required from what we've provided. We don't look at being being competitive in terms of the cost that goes into it, but what you get out of it.
In the long term. Thank you very much. Now, yesterday, we saw the presentation of Agenda 2063 for Africa. Well, it sounds like a very long time because I don't think I'll be around. But Agenda 2063, we saw the various corridors across east to west, north to south, and to me that means that the development of the networks will demand or would require more of the capacity for rolling stock, because our topic is about rolling stock. Now, we are here where we are, as you have told us, and I believe that there is a potential to increase capacity in this area. Any general comment about Agenda 2063, where will it find us, or is it going to be, again, certain external suppliers, manufacturers, that would take advantage of that whilst we are here? And what are the impediments that would maybe cause us to grow slowly and not meet that requirement if those network expansions take place? Any from the panel?
Okay, I'll start. I think by 2063, the region will understand and come to know that buying local makes sense. Because if we go back 10 years, we go back 15 years, there's a few countries that have purchased items that are standing. You know, they paid a lot of money. It should be working for 30 years, but it works for 2 years or 5 years, as opposed to it working for 15 or 20 years. So by 2063, I'm sure the region will come to an understanding that, okay, we need to get quality equipment.
Thank you. Any other comment, Para?
Yes, Chair. I think this is an opportunity where we as a region need to be able to be quite strategic in identifying potential hubs where we can share this amongst ourselves in terms of who does the actual manufacturing of the equipment, where does the spares supply chain come from, because it's only if we are able to beef up our own capacity but get commitment from the users as well that they would support these initiatives, then we will be able to create a very valuable accessibility both from the supply and the maintenance side, because that's what's really needed in terms of longevity of those corridors working.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Prasa?
Yes, thank you. I have big hopes for the Southern Africa region, not only because I was traveling in the summer through all these countries around South Africa, but because of the developments that are in Namibia, because the developments in Mozambique, and the mining that will be more and more valued around the world. And traveling around Southern Africa, I didn't have the same feeling like Europe, where you every 50 k's at least you are crossing a railway line. And I think that it's an opportunity for having a network, high-speed network, at least between the capital of the countries in Southern Africa, but also for the freight, not only minerals, but freight as well. And South Africa, it's going to play the role of being the hub of the passenger trains for not only for South Africa, Southern Africa, but for Africa as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. I think for the sake of time, we're drawing to the end of our session now. I want to, I'll give the floor 1 or 2 questions, but I want the person with the roving mic to be ready for some to take questions from the floor before I make my summarizing notes. Anybody from the floor to ask the panelists? Where's the roving mic? Okay, thank you. Ask your question, sir.
Bom dia, eu vou fazer a pergunta em português. Precisava alguém para traduzir.
I hope my panelists have some gadgets to get the interpretation. I don't, so I will not. Yeah, let me.
Manuel Antônio Kandakanda, presidente do Conselho de Administração do Caminho de Ferro de Luanda. A minha pergunta vai para a Gibela.
Okay, it's just fitting in the translator.
What channel?
A minha pergunta vai para a Gibela.
Yes, let him just get ready.
A Gibela produz comboios para o transporte urbano de passageiros. Eu gostava de saber se é possível as empresas daqui da região, que não estão na África do Sul, fazerem encomendas para a Gibela produzir comboios para o mercado externo. Esta é a primeira questão. A segunda questão também é para a Gibela. O ano passado visitamos a Gibela e vimos que produzem EMUs. Gostava de saber se, para além das EMUs, não produzem DMUs, na medida em que alguns países daqui da região ainda usam os comboios diesel como a fonte de energia. Muito obrigado. Não sei se vou repetir porque o senhor da Gibela não ouviu.
So maybe if I can just translate what I heard. So he's asking if Gibela can manufacture DMUs, because some of the markets in Africa are still utilizing diesel-powered trains.
Currently, Gibela is not manufacturing diesel, but that question has been asked several times, and the team is looking at the possibility of manufacturing diesel. I think one other challenge that we are faced with currently is we needed to manufacture 600 trains for our customer, PRASA, and if we were to manufacture for everyone else or any other client, we would need PRASA to give a go-ahead to them.
Can I add here? Yeah, obrigado, senhor. Also, in South Africa, we are going to use dieseling because our partners in infrastructure, TFR, decided to go on dieseling because of theft and vandalism. And hybrid. On some of our lines, we'll use hybrid, the same Gibella train sets, but with a hybrid pack, which will be electrical and diesel. And that's the second one. And our aim for the future is to go hydrogen for intercity. Thank you.
And maybe if I can just add, you must really consider investing in some electrification and hydrogen technologies. I understand that the financiers are quite keen to support green transportation projects. So it's the right time to do so.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, having traveled the continent so much and having identified some of the operations and rolling stock requirements, in the past few years, we did try to do a development of a DMU suitable to most gauges around the continent. We do have the capacity to develop that. I think if we can have a conversation on exactly what kind of requirements when it comes to the DMUs they're looking for. Yes, we have tried to do it, but we stopped for some reasons, but we have the capacity to do that.
Okay, thank you very much. One more question from the floor. One more, if there is one. Please, the roving mic person, check around. Okay. It looks like
You've covered the topic very well then, Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you very much. Okay, before our panelists leave, I just want to make a few summarizing notes here. And I'm quite delighted to hear what I'm hearing today, that we have the capacity from the various component manufacturing, full work on locomotive manufacturing, of course, with certain licenses for other components, and sustainable financial support structures are there, obviously depending on the business case that you would present to any financier. Collaborative action, I picked up as well that there is collaborative action between the manufacturers when they agree on a certain structure of collaboration, and of course strategies to protect investments. We need investments in rolling stock. At the same time, one would say railways or users of rolling stock have to consolidate, I think, their need. They have to consolidate, and I think it will help manufacturers when railways or operators put an order together, because we are aiming for the same standard of manufactured wagons and locomotives so that they are compatible from one line to another. The track is compatible. Most of the SARA track is the 1067 Cape gauge, and so we are okay with that. But we need the locomotives and wagons to be fully compatible. In other words, they run from origin to destination across all our countries, so that we are able to operate smoothly and reduce the transit time. So for now, I would really want to say thank you very much to our panelists for your time, for your input, and also let us give them a round of applause, please. And thank you to the audience for your active participation. I'm sure you picked up everything, even though time was limited to ask questions or make your inputs. Give yourselves a round of applause.